Good afternoon. Thank you for joining myself and Carmel for this session. I'm a member of the Suite development team, and Carmel works across a range of organizations delivering projects, including Biodiversity Net Gain. So we're particularly excited to share with you today the value of using Suite for ArcGIS to meet Biodiversity Net Gain requirements. Starting off with a quick intro to Biodiversity Net Gain, we wanted to say a big thank you to our panel members, Anglian Water, Mott MacDonald, and the East Riding of Yorkshire Planning Authority, who've already run through this concept in the previous session. But in keeping with global concern for biodiversity loss, all planning and development in England must now conform to the BNG framework. And this ensures that all landowners and developers restore and enhance 10% more habitat than they remove. And this is all based on the statutory biodiversity metrics spreadsheet. So this spreadsheet, which is published by DEFRA, assigns values to different habitats based on factors such as condition and distinctiveness. And this is how we calculate what that 10% that I mentioned would actually be. So in order to conform to the BNG framework, we need to understand the existing natural capital of our potential areas of development and what impact putting which development where would have on the overall biodiversity score of the area. So thinking about what types of land we have and where is a spatial problem requiring a spatial solution, which is where Suite for ArcGIS comes in. Suite is a data collection application with rules-based data editing. With Suite, we can validate our data at the point of capture, and we do this by configuring our applications with our particular business rules built in. This includes topology rules, like allowing or disallowing holes within polygons, or preventing adjacent features from overlapping with each other. We can also employ data rules to ensure that users do not enter inaccurate attribute information, and this is through things like conditional fields, auto-population, and auto-calculated fields. So this functionality removes errors whilst editors are actually editing the data, saving time on retrospective validation checks. Suite also offers the capability to take applications offline, both through the standalone Windows application and out into the field on iOS and Android. Suite licensing is comprised of additional licenses with builder and editor user types and can be accessed through browser through both ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise. So before we have a look at a fully configured BNG application, let's remind ourselves of what these apps are made up of. So all Suite apps are driven by a web map, and this is saved in the contents of your ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise account. And like all web maps, this is comprised of layers of contextual data, like imagery and base maps, as well as editable data layers. And these are the points, lines, and polygons that make up the data we use in our workflows. So creating a Suite app from a web map brings us to the two components of the app itself, the builder and the client. The client is the user-facing interface where users will query the data and make their edits, and the builder is the behind-the-scenes environment where we configure all of the rules we need to enable accurate data collection. Here we can also alter the look and feel of our application, as well as add additional elements such as locators. So now we can have a look at an app that we've configured specifically to help us create the data needed in the statutory biodiversity metrics spreadsheet. So here we are in our application, and we're in browser, centered on a base map of the UK. At the top, we've got options to pan the map, to select existing features, and to create new features. The panels on the left-hand side have been configured specifically for our BNG workflow, beginning with Find. To start creating and editing data, we need to locate our area of interest, either by searching by address or for the name of our site boundary. In Suite, we're able to investigate the data that has already been captured in our site boundary. Selecting this polygon reveals conditionally visible tools at the top, as well as additional panels on the left-hand side. So for this habitat polygon, it's been designated as modified grassland with low distinctiveness and in good condition. Suite can help us to digitize accurately polygons like these for use in the statutory biodiversity metrics spreadsheet. To do this, we'll need some contextual data, such as this OS imagery. We could use this to create data freehand. Alternatively, we could add some master map data. And we can use these polygons along with suite functionality and validation rules to digitize a polygon whilst snapping to and following along the boundaries. Zooming in, we can really check the accuracy of our edits here. Importantly, even if I were to slip outside of the boundary and finish up my edit like this, our polygon is automatically reshaped. And this is thanks to single-layer topology rules configured in the Suite Builder, preventing adjacent features from overlapping with each other and correcting our errors for us as we go. To speed up this data creation process, I can also use the copy and paste function with the master map data that we've added. Again, we see that our polygon has been reshaped. This time, this configuration requires that one layer be completely contained within another, leaving us with only the valid data required for our particular area of interest. So now that we've created some really accurate habitat polygons here, we can take a look at how Suite can also help us to maintain the accuracy of our attribute information. Taking a look at this first field, broad habitat, we have a drop-down field type here, restricting users to only these options. Another way to present the user with a list of domain values is by using a type ahead field. And here, the user can type what they're searching for and their options will pop up. To add some more flexibility, this extra notes field is a multi-line text field, allowing the user to add anything that doesn't fit with the data schema. So everything that I've just run through here is either out-of-the-box Suite configuration or can be achieved with a single click in the builder. So it's really easy to get to the point where you have an application with implemented rules that allow us to accurately create and edit the data needed in the statutory biodiversity metrics spreadsheet. To take a look at how we can take this a bit further, I will pass over to Carmel.
Thank you, Freya. So at this point, you might be thinking, after the panel and after what Freya shows, Suite does align with Biodiversity Net Gain, but you might be thinking, what about my users? What about my specific workflows? How can you adapt Suite to work and meet with them? Well, this is where Arcade comes in. So Arcade is a lightweight scripting language that's available across the ArcGIS system, including Suite. It works client-side on your users' devices, so performs really well without any extra infrastructure needed behind it to work. You can use Arcade to enhance and tailor Suite for your specific needs, like Biodiversity Net Gain. Use Arcade to validate your data at the point of capture, ensuring good data quality. Provide feedback to users as they edit, guiding them towards correct workflows and away from incorrect workflows. Automate the creation of spatial features or attribute values, streamlining workflows, and use it to incorporate your business logic. Because Arcade is a lightweight scripting language, you don't have to be a developer to work with it. However, if you are, it does have a familiar structure and logic to it, like JavaScript. If I had to sum up Arcade into one word, it would be functions. And there's a whole library of functions for you to build from, so you're not having to start from scratch. To demonstrate this, let's take Excel, where you have cells with text in it in all capital letters. You would use the proper function to convert these into proper or title case. And it's the exact same in Arcade. You would use the proper function and apply that to your input values. So when the user enters the information in all lowercase, that's auto-corrected to proper or title case. So let's see how we can use Arcade to fit in with Biodiversity Net Gain. It's likely your organization is working with the other BNG, British National Grid, where polygons by default have their area recorded in meters square, whereas in the Defermetric spreadsheet, the area needs to be input as hectares. So let's see how we can use Arcade to manage this conversion. I'm in the Suite Builder now that Freya referred to earlier on, and how it's structured and laid out is really similar to that client application. So where you want a user to find and use some configuration or capability, you would apply it in the same area within the builder. So I want this meter square to hectare conversion to be output in the properties panel. It's based on my BNG layer. I have a field where I want this value held, and I'll use a calculation to perform this conversion. This is the arcade dialog on the left-hand side. This is where you input the arcade. And on the right-hand side, there's a range of tabs to help you get started and build up what you're looking to do. So let's have a look at one of those functions that I was talking about. We can use the area function, and in the help, it determines that for any input, you can determine what the output is. So for our example, we want to output it in hectares. For the end user, they can see this information underneath the properties window. The area is recorded in hectares as well as meters square. As they perform any geometry workflows like merge, this information will update for both fields, allowing them to see the context of this information in a spatial form, but also relating it back to the deferometric spreadsheet. The next example I want to talk about is the calculation of the total habitat unit. In the deferometric spreadsheet, there's a range of calculations depending on the input category. However, one that's commonly used to calculate total habitat units is by multiplying distinctiveness score by condition score by strategic significance multiplier by area in hectares. So let's see how we can handle this calculation in Suite using Arcade. Back in the builder, I want this information to be displayed to the end user in a field. I've called it total baseline units. And again, it's a calculation. Back in the Arcade dialog, underneath the Globals window, or the Globals section, this is where I can access any of the layers, the data, the schema, so I can manipulate that with Arcade and produce the output I want. So under Feature, I can find the fields that I want to add into the calculation. So I want to multiply area in hectares by condition by distinctiveness score, and finally by the strategic significance multiplier. And that's it. One line of code to produce this calculation for the end user. Back in Suite, let's see what this looks like. Further down in the Properties panel, I can see that this polygon, or this BNG feature at this moment in time, has a score of 191.1. As I start to go through some geometry edits, maybe like adding a donut or a hole to my polygon, that baseline unit automatically calculates and updates for me. Similarly, as I go through and change the attribute values, it changes, allowing the user to see this change happening in real time in a spatial context that aligns with the deferometric spreadsheet. Let's see how we can take it further by using some examples that other organizations have done in Suite, like Anglian Water. If you're working with dates, you can use Arcade to validate those dates to ensure that the start date falls before the end date and vice versa. We can use Arcade to provide feedback for users. So some habitat types require condition survey and some do not. So use this feedback to inform users of such and hide fields when they're not required. For UK HAB information, you'll need to collect levels information for your BNG features. Yes, users can go through and enter these one by one, but for your expert surveyors and ecologists, it's likely they'll already know the level 5 value. So use Arcade to let them choose the level 5 value, and all the other levels will backfill, streamlining that and making it much faster. The final example is to show you how to tie that spreadsheet, deferometric spreadsheet, and Suite together even more. So you can use Arcade to build an export to CSV tool where you can select some features, export them to a CSV, select the rows, copy, and paste them directly into the metric spreadsheet, avoiding the user needing to go row by row, column by column to enter them in. If you're interested in getting started on your own suite and arcade journey, we've got plenty of training courses available with Esri UK, as well as arcade tutorials available on our Learn platform. We've got suite and arcade documentation, as well as webinars, including the upcoming one that's featured about natural capital. To summarize, Suite aligns really well to facilitate biodiversity net gain. For your users, it's easy to use, efficient, and accessible, whether you're online in the office or offline in the field. For GIS administrators or managers, you can ensure that the data collected is of high quality. It's configurable, and you can enhance Suite with Arcade, really making it fit your requirements and use cases. If you want to know more about B&G at the QE2 today, feel free to come up and speak to us after the session. Otherwise, we'll also be on the technical session stand in the tech zone on floor 2. Additionally, reach out to our partners on floor 3 and hear what they're doing to facilitate biodiversity net gain. We've got Ordnance Survey there, for example, for the master map information that Freya was showing, as well as Blue Sky, who have lots of data sets, including the recent national hedgerow map that they just published last week. If you want to find a ready-made solution, speak to our partners Temple on the 3rd floor. As well, I think we've got Hamish in the room from Greenside Rail. He's working on a solution that is focused on the rail industry. Thank you so much for joining us today, and enjoy the closing plenary.